There's an old debate. How do you get faster at Excel, increase your productivity, make things work quicker, do stuff quicker, get results quicker, and so on? And a lot of people will tell you it is keyboard shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. However, what some people find is Control plus 7 or 8 keys, or quite a few, is too much to remember. Today, we're going to look at the difference between the Control or Command plus keys versus, in some situations, a simple double click. So will that get you the result you're after? Let's pop inside and check out what a double click can do versus keyboard shortcuts. Welcome to the double click challenge, where we're going to look at how double click shortcuts relate to their counterpart on the keyboard. So when we're looking to make ourselves a bit more efficient and increase our speed at which we do things in Excel, we look to shortcuts. So let's explore what double clicks do in comparison to the keyboard. And here is our first challenge, our first comparison, which is to fill. Now we have two options for filling with our keyboard. One is Control D to fill down, one is Control R to fill right. But we do have a little precursor to those. Example is, here we have a formula. We need to select the area that we want to fill before we hit our shortcut of Control D. There it is, fills away. Now the double click does one major thing differently, and that is it detects how far it needs to go down because of the contents in the adjacent cells. So the first thing we need to do is to locate the fill handle, and that is the bottom right hand corner of the active cell. Let me just click it away here so we can see it. And that's that little square in the bottom right hand corner, which when we place our mouse pointer on is now a black crosshair instead of this white cross. So the mouse pointer shape changing to that little black crosshair. Now, clicking on our formula again, locating on the fill handle, double click, and you can see that it stops where it needs to, and that is at the bottom of that table range. Now, as I said, the other alternative for a keyboard is Control R. Again, selecting the range to the right that we wish to fill, Control R, and it fills away, formats and all. So, two ways to fill using a keyboard, and the fill handle method is the way to very quickly fill down through a table of data with adjacent cells to allow it to know where to stop. Our next shortcuts we're going to look at relate to auto-fitting the width of rows and columns. So we have, again, two keyboard alternatives which relate to the column width and the row height. As you can see, Alt H O I, Alt H O A. And again, we need to say to Excel which one that we wish to widen or raise the height of. So I'll select column D by its heading, and this is a column. So Alt, and as we hit Alt, first thing you'll note is, if you haven't experienced it before, the little labels around the tabs and other areas of the ribbon that you can access from just typing the letter or number displayed. So that's why Alt, and now we're looking for H, which is home, and O, and the column width, which is W, or auto fit, which is what we're looking for, which is I. And there we have it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 keystrokes to widen that column after we've selected it. Let's just undo that with Control Z or Z. And let's look at our auto fit alternative with the mouse's double click. Bringing our mouse pointer up here between the D and the E column, so to the right hand edge. When we have it located in that gap, you can see the double-headed arrow. So when we double click, bang, that's how we auto fit our columns. Now the row height, very similar. I'm just going to select this one here. So once again, Alt for the keyboard, H, O, and this time A to auto fit the row height. And that's done. So similar and a bit slow in my book as compared to we'll see. Once again, we're at the bottom edge though this time between the row headings 9 and 10. Double click, same thing. And I think in this case, that's where the double click just wins so much better than going through all of those keyboard shortcuts, unless you are super quick, your hands are on the keyboard, and you remember all of those keys or are very good at seeing what the shortcuts look like when they're flashed up on the screen. All right, so a quick undo of that. Let's look at one more little thing around AutoFit, and one last little thing to look at before we move on with AutoFit, and that is the ability to very quickly do a whole sheet. So by selecting the Select All button, which you can see between column A's header and row 1's header just above, and now every single cell in the spreadsheet is selected. Bear that in mind. Could be costly if you hit delete and don't realize. But moving on. So with all of the rows and columns selected, if we double click between any, we have now auto fit all of the columns in the spreadsheet. Double click between the rows and every single row is now auto fit. Very quickly click away so that you don't do any damage, but there you go. If you receive a whole sheet that's been mucked up through people changing row heights and column widths and all sorts of nonsense, select all, double click once for columns, double click once for rows. Can't be beat. Auto fit, I think the double click is a clear winner in this space. Our next exploration of double click shortcuts is the ability to rename sheets. And if we look at the keyboard alternative, it is Alt H O, once again, format, and this time we're looking for R, and as you can see there, it's rename sheet. All right, that's a bit of work to get that sheet name tab into edit mode, and then we can type whatever we need to. Hit enter, and we've renamed our sheet. Right, there it is. Let's try it with our double click. So we come straight to the tab and double click. Boom. And once again, I think that time the double click works supremely better than that keyboard alternative. So tick there. Next, let's have a look at Format Painter. Now, firstly, if you're not using Format Painter, get familiar. It's here on the Home tab, and the little paintbrush icon it is. If you right-click after copying or so on, you'll also see it in the shortcut options, and it's up here, Format Painter. So let's give our Format Painter a go first off, and if we select something to format, let's say we'll fill that in yellow. All right, now here's our task. We want to copy that format to multiple places throughout this workbook. Now, of course, we could do that conditional formatting, whatever. This is just simply to demonstrate double-clicking the Format Painter icon. So let's have a go. Find it wherever it needs to be and double-click. Now, what we've done is we've locked the Format Painter. You can see here, there's the little Format Painter icon. Now, let's firstly select what we wish to copy. And note, I have selected the entire row because that's the area I wish to copy the formatting from and then copy it to somewhere else. So once again, double click and you'll see the marching ants or the marquee surrounding the copied inverted commas area. And if I click somewhere, you'll see I've still got that icon attached to my mouse pointer. If I click again, and we can continue that multiple times. Now to stop the lock, simply hit escape, and there we have it. So we've done multiple copies of a format with little effort. Now, unfortunately, there's no exact duplication of the double click to lock the Format Painter. The keyboard alternative is Alt H for home again, F and P. Now you'll see that's hovering over the Format Painter FP. Once I've hit the P, I've now got the Format Painter. However, if you click, it unlocks, so you would have to do it each time. So I would have to say once again, the double click wins the day there also. Rightio, here's another. We've got this table of data here from which we've created a pivot table. Now we want to drill further down, say on this value, to see what stock and so on goes to make up that number. Now I will say up front, this one doesn't actually have a keyboard alternative. However, it's a cool tip nonetheless if you're not actually using it right now. So let's double click on this number here in Warehouse D, cleaning supplies. And you'll notice it has now opened up to the left a new tab called Detail 1. So these are the Warehouse D cleaning supplies. And there is our unit price, unit cost, and so on. We can just simply double check and make sure that everything looks the way it should, being that that was the largest number. You may also want to look out for where you've got a very low number that you're not expecting in a pivot table. And once you're done with it, you don't need to keep it. You can just simply delete it. And there's that reminder, delete. And that's why, because you can just simply double click to reproduce it very quickly. So that one's awesome, but again, no keyboard alternative, but there's lots of keyboard alternatives you can do for pivot tables. Anyway, this one I thought it's a double click and it could be a tip that might be worthwhile to someone. So here we are again. This is probably one of the first double-click things I came across with using Excel, which I've been using for many years now. But that is to double-click to edit our cells. Now, it's always had one of the best function key alternatives from the keyboard, and that is the marvelous F2. So to use F2, we simply select a cell and then hit F2, and we're in edit mode. Simple as that. And let's note a couple of things for those who are relatively new to Excel. When you are in edit mode, it tells you right here, bottom left-hand area on the status bar, hence the name. It's a status bar telling you the current status is edit mode. And up here, we are in edit mode because these buttons have jumped to life and we're able to make our changes up there or here in the cell itself. So I'll just add the H that was supposed to be there. To hit enter takes us out of edit mode, and you can see also down the bottom there, we're now in ready mode. Okay, so cool thing, keyboard alternative, F2 works a treat. Now, this is supposed to be candle, not condle. So let's edit that one, double click, and we're in edit mode as well. So you can see down the bottom here, still reads edit mode, and we're in edit mode up there as well. So instead of condle, we want candle, hit enter, job done. Now, I think that's a draw because keyboard, if your hands are on it, hitting F2 is just a matter of banging up on the first line of your keyboard, or if your hand's on the mouse, the double click, just as good. So 50-50 on that one. You may have a preference, but I think that just depends on where you're working, keyboard or mouse, which one you choose. Here we have one that's all about navigation, getting the cell pointer to move around the spreadsheet quickly. And I think if you aren't using either of these methods, you need to start doing that right now. So first off, let's have a look at the keyboard option. Now, to move a cell pointer around a spreadsheet, you can click, if you can see it, you can scroll down a bit to click to get to where you want. You can use the scroll bars, all of those things to navigate around. Now you can see here we're at row 304. Now we got there real quick because we were doing the scrolling here, but let's look at something even better with our keyboard. So using the control key, hold that and tap an arrow down. Boom, there we are, bottom right hand corner of that table. Control left takes us to the extreme left of that particular table where we have continuous entries. That's the key to this one. Control up, and there we are, up to the top area of the table. Control right, and we're back to around where we started. So very cool stuff. Now look what happens if there's no cells containing data in between. When we hit control right, we're at the very edge of the spreadsheet, XFD, column XFD. And you'll note there's a little gap here. I'd always like to know what's beyond the spreadsheet. Anyhow, control down arrow, and now we're at the bottom right-hand corner. 1,048,576 rows of data we've just jumped down. Control left again, you can see we're now back to column A. Control up, and there's the break. We've hit something with some data in it. Control up again, and then we're back up to the top. So how's that? Super quick way to navigate around a spreadsheet with data in it or without. Now, the double click alternative is a little bit trickier. You'll notice my mouse pointer shape. Once again, it changes, this time into a 4-headed arrow shape. When I'm on the edge, and I'll bring it over here, on the edge of up, down, left or right hand edges of that cell pointer. And that's the key. If I'm on the right hand side of the cell pointer, double click, and now the cell pointer has moved me to the extreme edge of continuous entries in the direction that I double clicked, the direction being on the right edge, much the same as this right arrow. Double click on the bottom, same again, we move down the bottom, on the left and on the top. Now if you do that accidentally, now you know why you've moved around somewhere weird by just double clicking, trying to edit or something like that. So very cool stuff that these two keyboard and double click alternatives, I think, pretty much do the same thing within a spreadsheet. So the very subtle difference when I'm working with the double click is if I double click the top, you'll see it moves to the edge of data, but if there's nothing in between, no go. This one, probably at a little pinch, the keyboard alternative might have won the day. However, they both do the really cool thing within the data area. So take your pick. They're both pretty good. One may have the slight edge, and in this case, keyboard may have won the day. Now, something a little bit different in double clicking versus keyboarding alternatives is using the double click inside chart elements. Now, what we have here is a chart detailing the FIFA World Cup goal scorers throughout history. Yay. And if you see, if I click on the chart itself, that's just the areas where the chart has drawn its data from. And the various elements that might be present in this chart are, we have the heading, the various axes, the series themselves, and a legend, and the chart. So now, if I double click on the chart itself, the chart area, you can see as I move around the chart, it tells you the bits and pieces that we're pointing at. So keep that in mind, because when I double click, it opens up the settings for the chart area, which is what I was pointing to when I double clicked. So we've got all the different formatting options and then other options that relate to what we had double clicked on, or AKA selected. So just closing that off, let's double click on the series itself. And you can see by the heading, the format of we're formatting the data series. So that's what we double clicked on. And once again, formatting the legend. So it depends where you double click and you get the appropriate format box open. Now, very similar one though is the keyboard alternative. You can see here it's Control+1, and that also works for many other elements within Excel. But here in the chart environment, select the chart, hit Control+1, same deal. We are on the keyboard versus we are on the mouse. I think that's where your choice lies. However, Control+1, still two keys you have to hit, whereas a double click can get you there a little quicker. So it's kind of line ball there, and I think I would leave that up to your personal preferences, what you might wish to achieve there. So double click chart elements and you get to the formatting area for that element. Okay, and our last one we're looking at is objects. Now I've got a range of different objects here. Some you may not have played with before, as you can see swimming around my spreadsheet. But you may have used pictures, shapes, and icons. Definitely, I think, for quite a lot of you. Now, if we double click a picture, what we get to is the contextual menu for the picture format. So we get all of the things we can do with a picture to change its shape, appearance, alignments, bringing it forward and backward, cropping and sizing, and all of those wonderful things. So that is particular to pictures, and to icons, a similar thing. Their graphics format contextual menu pops up where we can change it in some way, shape, or form, change the styles, fill, alt text, and again with the alignments and forward placements, sending it backwards and forwards, and cropping and so on, height. Yeah. Now, the same thing applies to these other icons. As you can see, if we double click, it's the graphics format contextual menu again. Now, the Control 1 option, if we click on the picture again, Control 1 will bring you up some of the formatting options you have. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, this one. There's no sort of true direct alternatives, but you can get to some things with an additional shortcut with the Control 1, which is pretty cool nonetheless. Now this particular shape, this rectangular shape, if we double click that, we get the option to enter some text into it. So text into that particular shape can then be formatted as well. So we can increase the size of the text and the alignment and all of that good stuff. Now, that double click, you'll see just basically brought the shape format menu up and placed it into edit mode. So any shape that you can enter text into, if you right click it, you can see there we have the option to edit text. Any shape that you can edit text can be done very quickly with a double click. So an object nonetheless, but works a bit differently than some of the other pictorial objects. Now, the 3D model, if we double click that, you can see we've got some of those similar sorts of alignment and so on, those options, but we have things to do with the 3D model itself. So a 3D model is basically a picture that has a three-dimensional aspect to it, and some of them actually can move, are pre-animated on your spreadsheet. So that can be a bit of fun if the reason you're creating the spreadsheet allows that. So maybe not for the board meeting, but maybe for a team meeting, you could introduce a bit of a fun element that way. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed looking through those various right-click keyboard alternatives. I think both have their place. I don't mean to be disparaging of keyboard alternatives. They can make life easier and quicker, more efficient. But if your hand is on that mouse and the double click is the alternative, I think it wins every day. So here's a quick summary of the things that most of the things we have done today, showing you the alternatives. So you can grab a quick freeze frame of that one to note down. And once again, I hope you enjoyed the double click challenge. I had a bit of fun coming up with it. And if you like what you saw today, please also like it through YouTube. Give me a like, and also if you feel encouraged to subscribe, please do so. That would be very, very, very welcome. And if there's something you'd like to see in particular, please jot it down in a comment and let me know what you'd like to see in a future video. So I'll leave you there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.